the ability to play a drum roll, that's 20 quid a month.
Oh, what's the best game where you get to eat pie? What's the best game where you play a dead guy? You'll find out in VG247's podcast. Here, what's the best game where you swing from a rope? And what's the best game where you batter the Pope? Assassin's Creed 2. Like I said, you will find out in this your podcast.
Hello and welcome to VG247's Best Games Ever podcast, where we have... Can I do that again?
No.
Hello and welcome to VG247's Best Games Ever podcast, where we attempt to find the best game within a very specific category. For example, this week, we're looking for the best game with the worst gimmick. Speaking of which, joining me today is Tom O'Reilly.
What is my gimmick? Are you saying I am a gimmick?
You've got several gimmicks, Tom, and they're all wonderful. I'm joined also by Sharif Said and James Bilcliffe. How are you guys doing?
Not bad, not bad.
Yeah, it's been a week since we saw each other last. It's incredible.
All
right, I'm going to switch things up this week because for a number of weeks now, the podcast has gone in a very specific order. But this week, I am going to let Tom go first.
Wow.
How about that? So,
incredible.
Best game with the worst gimmick. Tom, you have the floor.
For this one, I look back at an era where there was lots of new ideas, right?
Yeah.
That is like when things went sort of like polygons, right? So PlayStation era.
Yeah.
And there was always some new thing happening in games.
Yeah.
Mostly terrible, to be fair, because those early 3D games were rubbish, let's face it. Most PlayStation games are rubbish.
Yeah.
N64 games are often even worse. People that like that era of retro gaming are just wrong.
Yeah, there's basically like 4 good games on the N64 and that's it. But... Yeah,
I mean, I loved the N64 when I was playing it at the time, but you can't go back, right? So there was a lot to choose from. I was like, obviously with the best games angle, I was like best PlayStation games, trawling through the list of cover art on Google to see which ones actually had gimmicks. I was thinking about Tekken bowling and stuff like that. Like that was a gimmick that I never liked particularly. People seem to love
is fun.
Tekken
it's a good
bowling.
distraction.
I was like, what is this? Just a waste of time. But actually, and I thought longer and longer about this, and it's like, as a thing, it was a sequel to a game, right? And I knew this game well, and the next one came out, and they added this new gimmick that basically was not needed at all. And the game is, let me just check I've got it right. Football Manager 2009. Right? Football Manager 2009 added a 3D match engine.
Yeah.
And what a waste of time that was. Yeah. You do not need 3D match engine Football Manager. Even today, years later, you still don't need it. All you need is overhead view, little round men running around. That's all you need. You do not need proper 3D representation because it ruins what is the illusion of a game of football. When it's the little blobs running around, it looks enough like football in that you can see the ball pinging around. As soon as you put proper animated people on the screen, everything is like it's much easier to see problems with it. Like people do odd things on the pitch. It's like, why are they doing that? That's not real football. You get away with it when it's the blobs, right? So biggest gimmick, 3D match engine in Football Manager 2009. There you go. That
is a very solid and concise pitch for that feature, because it's like the difference between the novel and the film version, right? And the novel's always better because the film doesn't play out how it played out in your head. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, it's like such and such is breaking down the wing. You get the little thing pop up. You can imagine it happening. You see the blob doing it, great. And then you see it on the 3D match engine. They're like cutting about all over the place. It doesn't look like real football. Yeah. But on the blobs, you fill in the gaps, right? That's all you need.
The one thing that I will say is that it is the 3D match engine to this day is not mandatory at any point.
I'm not saying it is, but it is a new feature, and I find it a gimmicky feature that is unnecessary.
You want it to look as close to a spreadsheet as possible.
Spreadsheets do not have animated blobs running around. Yeah. Not the ones I look at.
Yeah. So it was Football Manager 2009.
Yeah.
And up until that point, so all the way through when it was Champ Man and everything,
initially it just had text, right? Initially, it was just updates by text.
It was just those like alert boxes, wasn't it? It's like there's a penalty and so has done a tackle.
You still get those. The best combination is the text updates with the 3D, not the 3D, with the overhead circular blob view. That's all you need. That's all you need.
I think the vast majority of people will agree with that. Like every Football Manager player I know, bear in mind Tom is like at least 70% of those, 20% of those. They all hate the 3D match engine and say basically the same thing, that it's a stupid feature that ruins the soul and the essence of Football Manager.
Well, you use it for match highlights, though, don't you? Do you not have the match highlights? Do you not goal highlights? I think everybody does that, don't they?
No,
that's what I do. You have the goal highlights on the match engine at least.
If you want to talk about what you do, that's fine. I don't.
He's like, I don't want to see their faces.
Exactly, yeah. It really takes you out of it. I mean, particularly with the like the regens and stuff, you don't want to see whatever that monstrosity is in 3D.
It has a picture of them in the
you just want to imagine that's what they look like based on their profile picture. But then you go in 3D engine, it's like, what is this? And I'm sure the new games look great, but I haven't turned it on in years, so I don't know.
Does does Football Manager have licensed teams?
Yeah,
it does.
Okay, so it's like, I imagine because you play Spurs and you're playing in that league, you roughly know what most of the players look like, right?
No, I don't watch real football. I just watch overhead blob recreations of football.
It has
of course
real
I do,
pictures
Jim.
of them.
Jesus.
I was going to say, you just listen to that Sky Sports guy who just like regurgitates it in the Teesside accent, and that's pure football. That is, you don't need to see them doing it. All right, okay. Let's go to Sharif. What is the best game with the worst gimmick?
Okay, so there's a couple of things that I want to say. First, I was going to pick Boktai, the Game Boy Advance game. It's a classic Hideo Kojima game, and the gimmick for that game was that the cartridge had a photo light sensor, and so if you wanted to charge the solar weapons in the game, you would have to put the actual cartridge in the sun. And as far as gimmick stuff goes, this one was pretty central to the thing, so you could argue it was a feature, not quite a gimmick. But I'm not going to pick that because I never had a Game Boy Advance, so I never played it. I only am aware of it, and I would never pick something that I have not played. The thing that I'm actually going to pick is, let's call it, not one game, but a feature in games from a certain studio that they just keep putting in their games that I just want them to stop. And let's call this, there are 4 games, if you believe it or not, that all have varying degrees. Yeah.
4 games?
All have...
Seems like that's too many games. 3 too many games, I might say.
Well, if it's the same feature, I could pick one of them if you prefer, but it's the same feature, and it's going to, I feel like, resonate better if you say they keep adding this feature. Anyway, I'm talking about let's call it the post-Neo Team Ninja games. So Neo 1, Neo 2, Final Fantasy Origin, whatever the subtitle of that game was, and Wolong Fallen Dynasty. And the feature in all of those games is that someone during the development of Neo 1 had the bright idea of making it have a Diablo loot system. Tremendous action games, all of them, from superb Neo 2 to Chaos, whatever, at the bottom, all tremendous action games, but they all are bogged down by how much time you spend in the inventory to try and sort through this slightly better sword and the slightly better piece of gear in a system that adds little value to what is essentially a mechanically dense action game that they used to make with Ninja Gaiden. They just wanted you to... It's worse than the gear stuff in Gotham Knights. It's worse than that stuff in Anthem. It just doesn't matter. And it turns... I mean, listen, I like loot. I'm not going to sit here and tell you like I don't like loot. I've played more Diablo 3 than I have ever played any single video game in my life. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh my God, loot is overrated. It's just numbers. I love loot, right? I love Destiny, all that stuff. But there's an argument to be made about too much loot. Those games, especially Neo 1 and 2, just drown you in loot. I'm talking almost every second pickup is a piece of gear that you'd have to go into the menu and look at.
Yeah.
To the point that people either ignore them entirely, or they would just go to YouTube and be like, okay, well, do I need to worry about this? And most videos will be that, don't worry about it, just upgrade to the bigger numbers. And then the gear that you actually want is drops from bosses and drops from the in-game activities and drops from this and that. So the uniques is the stuff that you want. But to get there, you have to wade through this miasma of just random shit. And if you're familiar with Neo, a really good advanced way of playing that game is relying on two weapons and switching between them during the fight, which is an advanced way to play the game. You don't have to do it, but if you do it, you're going to be rewarded. And so that basically doubles the number of items that you have to spectate every time you get a drop, because you'd be like, okay, is it a better sword or is it a better the other weapon that I'm using? Is it a better this thing or is it a better that thing? Like, go, if you're not familiar with those games, go watch, let's say, a 10-minute gameplay just randomly, and then see how many loot drops appear on a screen and how much of it actually matters. And so they realized that this is a problem. And so what their quote-unquote solution to it in Final Fantasy Origin was just to have an auto-equip button, where the game just looks at the numbers and does this busy work for you, which is a terrible solution because it indicates that they are aware of this is a problem, but because of this Final Fantasy game thing, they can't quite design around it. So they just said, let's just let the game think for you on this particular thing. And even in Wolong, and before that game came out, they said like, oh, we're not going to have as much loot as we did in past games. Every drop is going to matter. They do not. It's almost technically the same, just fewer drops, sure, but it's almost technically the same thing. And like the one thing I will mention that they actually did different in Wolong is the weapon skills, which cannot be transferred. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that would actually have you somewhat excited to get a drop, even until you realize there are only 6 of these on every weapon class. And you're like, okay, I've seen them all. I'm going to keep the one that I have because it has a skill that I want. And so like, those games would be so much better if they just removed the element of loot and had it be just locked it behind story progression, or had it be like you'd get it just as you would in an Ninja Gaiden, and not have it be just constantly getting it through a menu and system to the point that it just becomes ridiculous and unnecessary. And so that's like Team Ninja post Neo 1, stop.
I just imagined at one point in your pitch, just like the caption, listen, I like loot, except it's like next to a picture of Blackbeard. Okay.
Some of my best friends are loot games.
I actually quite like the loot in Neo and Neo 2, but I really dislike it in the Final Fantasy 1, and that's because Neo 1 and Neo 2 are good games and the other two are bad games.
But would you say they would be better games without the loot?
There's another game that kind of has this, or another series rather, with Assassin's Creed Odyssey versus Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I was literally about to say, And I actually really, really enjoy all of the loot in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I really, really like that part of the game, and was really sad when they stripped it out of Valhalla.
Interesting. Okay.
And thought that because Valhalla is such a vacuous and the world's most padded video game, that it actually needed some stuff. So you weren't just fighting the same dude over and over again.
Yeah, Valhalla could actually do with some loot, to be fair, because at some point with Valhalla, you just have like the best gear you're gonna have for it's like very early on in that game you get to a point where like, okay, I can win every fight with the exact same like 3 moves. And anyway, let's not get bogged down.
It's not the Loot Systems podcast, is it?
All right, okay.
Which game are we actually picking here? Which game are we actually choosing?
Yeah, which game are you actually picking?
Let's just say Neo 2.
James just said that's got good loot, didn't you?
He likes the loot.
Yeah, I enjoyed the loot in that because the weapons actually mean something rather than because Wolong's a bad game. Would have given it 2 stars if I'd reviewed it. It's an awful game. Anyway, the weapons actually mean something in Neo 2. You can actually, like you say, you can switch between them, and there are some different styles. They actually do different things and feel different tangibly.
Sure, so I'm not saying
getting different colors of stuff is really fun.
But it's always just a +1 thing. It's not exciting loot.
Oh, I like that +1 though. It's one more. It's one louder, isn't it?
But it's too much. There's too many drops. That's the thing. How often do you pause the game and look at your loot, James, when you play Neo 1 and Neo 2?
Probably after the boss when it drops something good, and then you dismantle all of the other stuff.
Great. So why have it in the game then? If you're dismantling it all and not doing what I do, which is just look at everything.
Get all the upgrade stuff. That's a part of progression. You get all the you dismantle the stuff. You get the upgrade stuff.
You're effectively making my argument for me.
That's a core feature of an action game.
No, a core feature of an action game is gimmick. Action combat. I don't need this fluff.
Right. Oh yeah. Right.
Of an RPG, perhaps.
Right. Need to break this up. This happened last week. Right. Okay. So, I was going to talk about Assassin's Creed as well, but actually, I was going to say that Odyssey's loot was. Had the same problem as what Sharif's talking about. It's just too much. Too often you just get you get 50 spears that are 2 damage less than what you're already using, or it's they've got 4 different types of damage in Odyssey, and so it's oh, this one has plus 28 assassin damage, but that one has plus 50 whatever range damage or whatever. So you got and when I'm saying plus 28 minus 28, this one's got plus 50, that one's got minus 50. We are talking about damage stats in the tens of thousands at this point in the game, and you start quibbling over what's 32 versus. So yeah, and you end up just doing shit maths in your head. And reading numbers instead of doing stuff. And as Sharif said, it is supposed to be an action RPG, not a sitting about looking at a character sheet RPG, because those are tabletop RPGs for Poindexters, not video games, right? So, I agree with you, Sharif. All right, James, what is the best game with the worst gimmick?
Well, I've taken a bit of a gamble here because this is a...
Are you doing one of your... twisting the topic?
Is there a character? There's a character called Gimmick or something, isn't there?
No,
is that your cat?
That's my cat. Sorry about
Benny.
that. Here he is.
Hey.
Say hello.
Hello, Benny.
He's waving. Look at him waving. Oh, waving.
Yep. Oh.
Anyway.
I wish my cat would say hello, but she's hiding under something. She's an antisocial little bastard.
Well, there's the thumbnail, if anything. But it's not because I'm trying to twist the topic or anything. This is a legitimate pick, and a game that I actually have a lot of fond memories with because it's one of the.
Does that mean all your other picks will be illegitimate?
No. Sometimes they have been illegitimate, I'll admit that, but it's a gamble because it's one of those games that came out in an era where I think I was 9 years old. So I remember it as being really good time. I had a great time with this game, but you were all 26, so you might think it was rubbish.
I fucking wish I was 26.
This is Tony Hawk's Underground, a brilliant skating game that I really enjoyed with my friends when I was a kid. And one of the sort of hallmarks of that early noughties era was extreme sports were huge, and as a young lad, being a professional skateboarder was something that was presented as a legitimate career because the X Games were kind of in their pomp, and you could, and it was all this sort of stuff. And then one of the big things about Tony Hawk's Underground was that it had this amazing, innovative gimmick where you, little Jamesy, could be a professional skateboarder, because if you jump through the right hoops, you can scan your face into the game and your creator character can look like you. And so I've managed to dig into the internet archives, and I would like to just nicely read out what you have to do to get the picture of yourself into Tony Hawk's Underground. So this is an article on IGN by Douglas Perry. Thank you, Douglas. And he says, the procedure works well and quickly. Grab a picture of your face with a digital camera, take the image, import it into your computer, which I didn't have at the time, so I had to do it at a friend's house. Attach it to an email, and email it to faces@thugonline.com. So yeah, they've set up a specific email to get pictures of children's faces.
Oh no!
And then through something, you'd eventually get this sort of wrapped polygonal nightmare that could make you look like a professional skater if you exclusively if you wanted to look like Tingle from Ocarina of Time or something. Just some warped, textured nightmare. And it's a brilliant skate game. I really enjoyed it at the time. It had one of those. It was a great transitional game from the sort of arcadey era of the Pro Skater games to stuff having a more dedicated story and all of that sort of stuff. And it was, and I think it was quite successful in that. I enjoyed it at the time, even if I did ask for it for Christmas, and it was like I asked for it from my grandma actually. And because it was rated 16, I was told she might as well buy you a pack of cigarettes.
Same damage.
But I did actually play this game. I played it a lot at my friend's house, and the gimmick that you could be a professional skateboarder was just awful. It didn't work. It was a polygonal nightmare.
Take your soggy mob flips back to Jersey, tweakers.
And I think emblematic of these weird promotional things that you'd have all the time and that sort of thing, that you'd have things where it's like, take a picture of your TV and Nintendo will send you a certificate, or you can go to a shop and you'll get a Pokemon, except the TV that you're supposed to clip into is never turned on. And all of these sort of things. And there was all sorts of stuff like that, all sorts of these gimmicks at the time. But I just remember the absolute stomach-churningly worst one was trying to get your own stupid little face into Tony Hawk's Underground.
I take it you don't have any photo or anything of you actually in the game.
I don't remember. No, I don't have. I've not got a prop of it.
It's like, because this was back in like 2003, so you just nobody had a camera on them all the time.
Yeah, the camera, the battery in that camera is long turned into a popcorn nightmare.
I would have to, like, I think maybe for some of our younger listeners, we have to explain that when James says, and in 2003, I had to get a digital camera to take a photo of myself.
That's true, yeah.
Like these days, everyone's just got a camera on them wherever they are. True. But back then, like, you would have had to go and get the camera off a shelf in a cupboard or something. Like, you would have had to borrow it off your dad or whatever. Like, you wouldn't have just had it.
You only had a camera to use on holiday.
And it was an analog camera. Exactly. It was definitely not a digital camera.
Exactly. Another fun specification is that it has to be a digital camera and not a wind-along one that you take to boots.
Yeah, in 2003, that was like, you're on the cusp there of like digital wasn't quite, Yeah,
you have to be Tony Hawk himself to actually afford one of these things. Have a computer. I didn't have a computer. I didn't have the internet at the time in my house for another couple of years.
If you found the save, wouldn't it still have your 3D model thing?
As I say, I played the game pretty much every day for months at a time at my friend's house, so I never had it. Like, I never had the memory card does not belong to me.
That's a shame.
So somebody out there got a memory card?
Maybe.
Like, your wraparound fucking master control program from Tron sort of face wrapped around a horrible 3D model. I love that. I've got a vague memory of this, when you were describing it. I remember this feature being marketed, and it would have been the kind of thing that like video games TV shows would have talked about. Like in really glowing terms, like, look at this incredible feature, you can put yourself inside the game. It's the kind of thing that like tech illiterate times people would have been really impressed by, but now you look at it, I mean, they couldn't have had like an automated kind of AI process for that to do back then. They must have had a bunch of guys just like checking the emails and mapping them onto heads. They must have been doing it manually. They couldn't have been doing it any other way, surely.
That sounds right. But also that feature has just been in so many other games since then. Like, I know I tried it in FIFA some year, and you can still do it the same things like I think the WWE games.
Yeah, but a bloke doesn't wrap it around the actual model, does he?
Just the idea of getting your face into a game is not something that has been, I guess... Yeah. It's not so much a selling point anymore because no one cares. But, it's been a sort of pursuit of the games industry, I guess, to make it happen.
I do love that, because back then it would have been like, I can put I can be a skater. I can cut about with Bam Margera and Tony Hawk and all those guys. And then and now you're just like, what if we put your face in the game? You'd be like, I don't want to look at my face. Like, no, I want to look at the face of like the actor you've hired and spent like thousands of dollars on and mocapping. And I say thousands because it's the games industry. They don't pay anyone anything. Right. Okay. So I'm going to pick something now. So we're going to play that pick something jingle. I've got to say, right now, last week I was like, it's become a factor now with whenever Sharif is on that like, it would be a shame to break the streak, and it would be, but and the only reason the streak exists, Sharif, is because you are very good at this game. But I have to say, the streak's broken. I'm really sorry, but like
Football Manager wins.
Shouldn't have laughed so hard at that. Sorry, Tom.
Mentioned it enough times that I will probably win at some point.
The face wraparound feature on Tony Hawk's Underground is the epitome of like I mean, it was a great game as well. It won Critics' Choice Awards. It was reviewed very highly. Yeah. I think it got like 33 in Famitsu. That's pretty respectable.
Why is it a bad gimmick? It's just a gimmick, because that was the technology of the time.
It's a shit gimmick.
But only it's an awful implementation of
because
it, right?
It's the technology.
Maybe most people got a really good representation. James used a bad digital camera. The person working that day was like overworked.
Yeah.
They'd done about 200 faces that day.
Yeah.
He was the last one.
Yeah. Well, they just copy-pasted the same model of Tingle, right?
I mean, I'm surprised though, because don't take this the wrong way, James. But like, you've got features that I think could transfer quite nicely onto a PS2 era head model.
It was 9 at the time.
I think that is the best. That is one of the best worst gimmicks I've ever heard of. Surely,
it's just a gimmick.
It reminds me of when the eye tracking peripherals came out. And those gimmicks started happening. Like, every now and then you'd get a game that was like, but you can aim by looking at something.
That's a big part of PlayStation VR 2 now. It works pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the PSVR 2 sold like 200,000 units and it's dead. So that's what happened to that. Allegedly, yeah. Do we not actually know that for real?
Sony said the stuff about them not meeting their sales targets was.
But besides, the main point here is that for 2 weeks in a row, I've come up with really very good reasons why Football Manager should win.
Yeah.
And I haven't. Like, I actually think I know it's a bit of a broken record, but I have been robbed 2 weeks in a row.
No. If anything, this is going to be
at some point. At some point, I will have to choose something else other than Football Manager, and that no one will be happy about that. And it's on you, Jim.
I'm sorry.
When that happens, it's on you.
I'm sorry. You can't not choose Football Manager now because that's.
I can. If I choose something else, there will be riots.
It's on you. Not choosing Football Manager is a worse gimmick than always choosing Football Manager.
I've said my piece, and you have to live with it.
Look, I'm really sorry that I broke the Sharif streak. I'm really sorry, Tom, that once again because
it's not even James for a pick, though. It's just a gimmick. It's not a bad gimmick.
If James had said something shit, Tom,
no, it's not.
Come
on. No, you know what's a terrible gimmick? That Tony Hawk game where you had this actual skateboard.
Yeah, the ride, but it's a bad game as well. I did think of that one.
But like the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean that's a shit gimmick and a shit game. But Underground's a really good game. Yes, because it's predicated on
this terrible design thing that doesn't fucking work, and it's like, oh, this is a bad gimmick for sure. But like, the thing that you had is just endearing. It's just like, oh, I'm putting my face in it as a kid. That's funny. That's amazing. It's not something that takes away from it at all.
Yeah, to be fair, we haven't seen the face. We haven't seen the face. To be fair, we don't know what it looks like.
2003.
I don't have to break up another argument between Sharif and James. Thank you very much for listening or watching. Please,
do some reviews.
Yeah, please give us 5-star reviews on your podcast platform of choice. Please like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Leave comments, and if you want to leave comments with topic suggestions, that would be really good because we are really the topic suggestions every week are now like, James, you got anything? Like, has anyone thought of a topic this week?
Also, if you know any Americans, get them to listen to this. Because I look at the stats and it's always like viewers, listeners in America, 5 or something. It's like, why are you not listening to this, Americans? You won't answer me because you're not American. But the point is, if you do know an American, like, I don't know, if you're friends with Greg Miller, message him.
Tell your American friends this. Tell them there's this Egyptian dude on his podcast who sounds like he's from upstate New York, and that would be enough to get them to watch this. I guarantee you they would at least be curious to be like, that's not true.
Why have you just owned yourself on this?
I have been told this repeatedly.
I like 100% see it. I know exactly what they were getting at, but only now that you've said it, now that's all I can think of.
I've been told this so many times that it had to be, I'm going to play this card now because someone's going to be listening to this and be like, that sounds crazy and unbelievable. I'm going to listen to one episode to see what the hell is this.
This is also 2 weeks out of 2 that you've elicited comments on our appearance. Like, is that really something that you want?
This was more about the accent, not the voice, but not the appearance. But I guess I didn't think of that.
Don't comment on our appearances unless you're being nice, obviously. But yeah, please comment, say stuff, suggest topics, argue, suggest your own picks for the topic du jour. God, that was wanky, wasn't it?
If our viewership, listenership is, what's the word for that? I guess viewership because we're now on video. If our viewership in America increases because of this, I'd be very happy.
Yeah.
Because it's there.
Yeah, I mean, it might do. We have to, maybe we should send a press release to America. Is that a thing you can do? Just get the White House press secretary to read it.
I have never been in the United States in my life.
I have, and I envy you.
But no, just to completely sell you on why this is unusual and bizarre.
All right, so like and subscribe, leave reviews, leave comments, and we'll see you next week with another topic that we have to now go and discuss.